Is Giga Berlin potentially in trouble? I'll share with you some concerning things that all of us Tesla stock investors should really be aware of, and we'll go through what kind of effect this has on Tesla stock. Should you be concerned, or is this just one of those things that's good to know but really not that important? But I do believe there is a good chance that a lot of Tesla bears are going to use this point to scare everyone away from Tesla stock. So this is a rather important video to watch if you are a Tesla stock investor just like me. So this is where the problem starts. We know what's going on in Ukraine, but only just now recently, one of the biggest gas pipelines has been shut down. This one right here, Nord Stream 1. I am from Europe, so this is, if I was still living there, this would really freak me out, because Germany gets basically most of its gas from Russia through this one single pipeline, which is now shut down basically indefinitely, permanently. And just recently, a little bit more than a month ago, I said that when this pipeline was shut down for maintenance, that there's a good chance it's never going to come back. Now, it came back for a short period of time after that, but now it's officially shut down. But Matt, what does this have to do with Tesla stock? Well, these are, let's say, electricity prices, and it's not looking pretty. And one of the big selling points of Tesla vehicles, you save money on gas because electricity is so much more cheaper. But guess what? These gas pipeline shutdowns, is it going to be cheaper? Probably not. Probably not. So we might see a lot of Tesla bears later talking about this specific point, saying how Teslas are now going to be more expensive to run than other equivalent gasoline powered vehicles. But they would conveniently forget that gasoline and diesel, which in Europe diesel is very popular, also is going to be a lot more expensive, because where most of that comes from to Europe, from Russia. And another reason why this is such a big deal for Germany specifically is because before, basically, they didn't have any ports where they could accept natural gas from. Unlike many other countries, they can import gas by ship. Germany, not really, because their reasoning was, we have this pipeline and there's no issue with Russia, so we're not going to build any of the expensive infrastructure that we don't need. And you look at statistics, where does energy to Europe come from? The sources, natural gas is a big deal. Now, specifically for electricity, only 10 to 15% of electricity in European Union is produced using natural gas, but that is still a big deal, because that last resource that you use to make electricity is what basically sets the price of all electricity, because you use basically the same amount of electricity no matter how much it costs, sort of, unless it goes up multiple times, which now it has. So it's becoming a big deal here. And this is getting really serious. A lot of countries in Europe are using measures similar to what Switzerland is doing here, which is basically, the measures would include the inside of homes not being heated to above 19 Celsius, which is 66 Fahrenheit, and a maximum of 60 Celsius, 140 Fahrenheit for water. So you can't boil water, basically? This is quite extreme. Anyone breaking the rules could be slapped with a fine, and this is getting a little bit serious. Now, it's also not helping that Germany is shutting down nuclear plants. They have, since what's happening in Ukraine, they are shifting their stance, but it's, I mean, they're still considering that somewhat seriously. I mean, Take a look here. Germany keeps 2 nuclear reactors on standby to weather gas crisis. Not active, standby. And you read through here, Germany plans to keep 2 of its 3 remaining nuclear power stations on standby beyond a year-end deadline to ditch the fuel to ensure enough electricity supply through the winter during a gas crunch. But at the same time, never underestimate Germany's ability to turn things around extremely quickly. Germany says 5th floating LNG terminal to be built by end of 2022, which is basically how they can import gas from other countries by ship. And more importantly, European Union has reached their target of gas reserves to fill up all the storage tanks, and right now it's sitting at 84% as of September 10th, which is pretty good news. This basically says that there will be at least electricity available, there will be gas available, but a lot of people and companies, and I emphasize companies here, will not be able to purchase it because it will be too expensive, but it will be there. And we're gonna get into what this means for Giga Berlin and Tesla overall. I mean, you are seeing some crazy ripple effects right here. So take a look here. Norwegian fertilizer giant is basically discontinuing production because the costs increased more than 10 times. Now, this article is pretty interesting. You can pause and check it out if you like. But there are going to be some crazy ripple effects in Europe, and that affects Germany very, very directly. So at least in Europe, definitely expect food prices to go really high. I mean, this another example, a German grower of tomatoes, strawberries, and peppers relies on SKW. I'm not gonna read this, this here, definitely not. For heat as well as CO2, but was left stranded then Germany's biggest producer of ammonia and urea halted output last week. Without heating, nothing works here. And when the prices are incredibly high, you just can't afford it. For example, a lot of people in Europe will experience the money that they will have to pay for heating will probably at least quadruple, if not more. So if before you were paying, let's say, $400 to heat up a house, now it's gonna be $1,600, which is kind of a big deal, and that could be a lot more as well. And then there's not much money left after just barely able to, if you are barely able to buy food and heat your place, are you going to be thinking about buying a new car? Probably not. Unless you really have to and there's no other way. And even then, maybe you will buy a second-hand car. And maybe not electric, because electricity prices are going to be incredibly high. Now, gasoline and diesel price may already also be quite high, but it doesn't seem like they are going up at the rate that electricity prices are going to go up at. So we will definitely see probably Tesla bears saying that Tesla is going to have a difficult time in Europe. Except Tesla's demand is so high, I don't think it's really going to be an issue. But let's take this and let's say, okay, this is going to happen and it's going to be really bad for Tesla and electric vehicles in Europe, and the demand is just going to be totally crushed. I don't think that's going to happen. But if it did, Tesla can still export vehicles to basically any place in the world, and a lot of places in the world are not really going to be affected, at least nowhere near as much as Europe. And also you have to keep in mind that all the suppliers, local suppliers, anything that is made locally in Europe is going to be more expensive. That includes a lot of things like steel, for example. Basically anything you can think of that's locally going to be produced is going to be more expensive because energy is more expensive, gasoline is more expensive, diesel is more expensive, and people will be struggling to get by. It's going to be a difficult time. But that's where Tesla's huge margins come to save the day. even let's say if other automakers are going to be put into extreme trouble where their margins will shrink even further, Tesla has huge margins. So even if Tesla's margins are reduced by 20%, Tesla is still okay. And during this period of time, this hard time, the best companies will come out, and those companies will take huge market share, which of course one of them is going to be Tesla. And speaking of what is going on in Ukraine, Peter Zion actually predicted very accurately that this is going to happen, and he predicted that years ago. So even though I know this video looks like he's a hostage in Afghanistan, he actually is incredibly knowledgeable, and you should really pay attention to what he says if you are interested in geopolitics. So I want to play this one clip from this video where he mentions what is going on in Ukraine right now.
The Russians did not even get on trucks to try to drive away because the Ukrainians were using drones to hit trucks on the highway. They simply left their equipment and ran, and it appears in most cases the only reason that the Ukrainian assault is not happening more quickly is that they are waiting for Russians on foot to run to the next town, tell everyone that the Ukrainians are coming, so that those troops can get off their equipment and run. So we're not just seeing a broad-scale collapse of the entire Russian military position in these areas, we are seeing them abandoning every piece of equipment that they have brought in and stored up for the last 6 months as part of their effort to go onto the rest of Ukraine. So in the case of Izium specifically, that is enough tanks, artillery, ammo, and fuel to supply 10 to 20,000 men, making it the single biggest arms transfer we have seen since World War II in the days of Lend-Lease. It's just that it's from the Russians to the Ukrainians. That one day has transferred more weapons to the Ukrainian military than everything that NATO has done to this point.
However, don't get too excited about this because Russia has won. When you look at long, horrible wars in the past, Russia won about half of them, and basically in many of those, it had situations similar to this where it seemed like Russians are crushed and then they come back with everything, with a new strategy, new tactics, new leadership, rally troops, and then everything turns around. So I wouldn't get too excited about this if you are rooting for Ukraine here, but it's a step into a certain direction, and let's see if it continues this way. If we just look at pure numbers, number of soldiers, military equipment, everything, clearly Russia is still on the winning side. But in the beginning of all this, it seemed like Ukraine had no chance to hold, definitely not for 6 months, and it's already been 6 months. So this is quite incredible already. So when I look at Giga Berlin, when I looked at it in, let's say, February of this year, I thought it's in deep trouble. Now I think it's in somewhat a little bit of trouble, but nothing that really matters too much long term unless something breaks out on a world scale. So I think this is fine, but there are certainly a lot of challenges that are coming up. But for Giga Berlin, I think Tesla's going to be fine. So if any Tesla bears bring up the increasing electricity prices in Europe, just know Tesla can export cars as well. Even though that may make a little bit less money for Tesla, still the cars are incredibly profitable. So I would say that this argument from a Tesla bear would not really be that valid. So something just to look out for. So watch the next video right here or right here. Like this video, that's the best way to support this channel. That will help this video reach more people, and it will help us make videos better editing, quality, better everything. My name is Matt Pocius, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.